Namaskar to all my students and viewers. Today I'll be doing the lecture 2 in English of our International Relations paper. And the main issue that I want to start off with in this lecture is the transformation of the state. That is what we today call as the modern nation state. This is very important because state is seen by most theories as central or the major actor in international relations. So it is extremely important for any student of international relations to understand how the state has been transformed and how do we have today what we think was very natural is not natural. It evolved over a period of time due to historical circumstances. So in this lecture, we will be going into how this evolution of the state, or what we call the transformation of the state, took place. So in this lecture, we will look at the state. The basic state we have today, we call it the Westphalian state system, right? See, we would start off a little amount of European history, you should know, because most of these concepts come from the European part of the world. Most of you know that in Martin Luther in 1570 made 95 theses at the door of the cathedral in Wittenberg, meaning he wanted to reform Christianity and questioned the power of the popes. And this is what we call as the Protestant Reformation. Because for the first time, you have in a monotheistic religion an attempt at internal reformation. The next century, you saw monarchs across Europe who found in religion a justification to begin wars. Really, the war may be about politics and economics, but religion or religious identity or sub-identities were made an issue. The Peace of Westphalia was signed after the 30-year war. This 30-year war, which began as a war between Catholics and Protestants, brought in most of the monarchs of Europe. So many people believe that, or international relations theorists do believe that the Peace of Westphalia in 1648 AD marks the beginning of modern international politics. Why? Because states enjoy sovereign jurisdiction. They have an independent control over what happens within their territory. This principle comes about only after the Peace of Westphalia, or what we call the Treaty of Westphalia. Now, when we say the Westphalian state, what do we mean? There are certain, features of the Westphalian state. At the end of the 30-year war, Europe had become very, very tired, all the countries, of fighting for 30 years. So they decided that they should bring a treaty which would cover certain ideas that were at dispute. Now, all other institutions, the first was that the state has a control over its internal affairs and territory. And all other institutions and groups, spiritual or temporal, are subordinate to the state. So this concept of state sovereignty comes into being only after the Treaty of Westphalia. The other idea that comes about is sovereign equality. The idea that all countries have the same rights, including the right of non-interference in their internal affairs, also came. Meaning everybody is equal if they are part of that society of states. which is an association of sovereign states based on common interests, values, and norms. And then the most important concept of the realists also comes into being at this period, what is called balance of power. In the international system, a state usually there is a balance between different forces, parity and stability among competing forces, and no one state is sufficiently strong enough to dominate the others. Or if a state tries to increase its power at the cost of the others, then there would be some check and balances. After the Peace of Westphalia, the treaty that we have to look in is the peace at Utrecht. We agree, this is in 1713, the agreement that ended the War of the Spanish Succession, that is 1701 to 1714, and helped to consolidate the link between sovereign authority and territorial boundaries in Europe. This treaty refined basically what the territory, that every state has a territory and every state has certain sovereign rights within that territory. Balance of power also comes in again, and just equilibrium of power, meaning you have a just equilibrium which promises based on mutual friendship and durable harmony. Then you had the Revolutionary Wars, especially the American Revolution, 1776, and the French Revolution of 1789. Most of you know that these two revolutions had profound international consequences on the system. The revolutionary insistence that sovereignty must be vested in the nation rather than the rulers, especially dynastic rulers, was a huge paradigm shift in this period. And most of you know that the French Revolution's clarion call of liberty, equality, and fraternity literally went through the globe. It also gave an impetus to what we call the idea of national self-determination. That is the right or desire of a distinct nationalist group to become states and rule themselves was seen as a very fundamental and reasonable right in the international system. And what other things came about with these two revolutions? This principle would increasingly dominate international politics in the 19th. Most of you know, one of the 14 points of President Woodrow Wilson in the after the First World War, the Paris Peace Conference, was national self-determination. It also endangered the imperial systems, those who thought that there was a divine right to rule, that kings had a divine right to rule. And the idea of identity based especially on primordial identities like language, religion, ethnicity, culture, and also sovereign states could be formed from these identities. Then you have, if you see, religion takes a background, goes backwards, and the rise of modern nationalism and rise of liberalism also starts in this period. The effects of the French Revolution are enormous. First, end of over 400 years of one of the biggest dynasties, the Bourbon dynasty. Monarchy was abolished in 1792 and replaced with a republican form of government. Most of you know Napoleon Bonaparte, an upstart, became the Emperor of France. Then there is change in land ownership. The dominant position of the French Catholic Church also declined. It gave birth to new identities like nationalism, liberalism and communism. Haitian revolution and other revolutions are thought to have inspired from this. So the period of Napoleon Bonaparte saw that France increased its power at the cost of others. So all the other big powers came together, like England, the Austro-Hungarian, Russian, Prussian, to restrict Napoleon Bonaparte. Most of you know he was defeated at Waterloo in 1815. And these states that had joined together to defeat Napoleon Bonaparte met at Vienna in 1815, and what is famously known as the Vienna Congress. The 5 great powers of Europe came together to sign or to maintain the peace, or what we call the balance of power. This is also known as the golden period of balance of power. Multipolar. You have 5 big states of Europe which came together with the 5 major powers. And they are the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was also called the Holy Roman Empire, but it was neither holy nor Roman. So if we see very clearly, you have them, then you have Britain, you have the defeated France, Prussia. Prussia is Germany, and Russia under the Tsars, the Romanovs. Then they agreed that on controlling revolutionary forces, especially the French Revolution, was something that shook entire Europe. Then how to manage the balance of power. And they also accepted how to keep the current leaders in power. Most of you, if you know Henry Kissinger's doctoral thesis, was on this 1815 treaty, on the role of 2 statesmen, especially one of Austria, that is Metternich, and Lord Castlereagh of Great Britain. Now, what was this concert of Europe? Many people, at least international relations theorists, think that this was a wonderful system that had kept peace in Europe. The system kept peace in Europe from 1815 until the World War in 1914. It was characterized by regular meetings of the club that had aims of maintaining European balance of power and reaching decisions on potentially divisive issues, meaning they regularly met, they kept in communication to each other. As we say, when you talk to each other, you resolve matters. In the same way, they decided to keep. And there was a shift from free for all and a highly decentralized system to a more managed hierarchical system in international relations. And they set up 3 key institutions of the Westphalian international society was what? 1, balance of power. 2, diplomacy. And 3rd, international law. Now the Congress of Vienna, which was, as most of you know, signed in 1815, is seen as the beginning of international relations. 1814, the powers had declared formally the intention to create a system of real or permanent balance of power in Europe. Meaning, as I said, a more organized, from a decentralized ad hoc system to a more organized hierarchical system. In 1815, during the Congress of Vienna, they carefully redrew the map of Europe to implement this system. Prince Clemens von Metternich, who called for this meeting, had 3 goals. What was it? That none of the powers would increase power at somebody else's cost. For example, like the French did under Napoleon Bonaparte. And it also decided to balance France. France should be surrounded with strong countries. It wanted to distort the balance of power so that no one is a threat to the other. So basically it was an attempt to restore the conservative political order in Europe. Leaders, as I told you, who were present, who dominated this system for about 100 years, was Prince Metternich, the foreign minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Emperor Francis I, King Frederick Wilhelm II of Prussia, Tsar Alexander I of Russia. Great Britain and France were represented by their foreign ministers, Viscount Castlereagh and Prince Talleyrand. After this, the other major conference that takes place is what is called the Congress of Berlin in 1878. This Congress of Berlin was a meeting of representatives of the six powers. 13 June to 13 July, nearly a month. You had the five major powers, Italy and Germany, and the Ottoman Empire. And this was basically about the four Balkan states, Greece, Serbia, Romania, and Montenegro. It aimed at determining the territories of the states in the Balkan Peninsula after the Russo-Turkish War of 1877-78 and came to an end. Russia won the war. But Russia felt that it was not allowed to enjoy the fruits of its victory because of the Prussian Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, also known as the Iron Man of Prussia. He is also seen as a person who integrated Germany into a major power. The Ottoman Empire was already in its last phases. It was also known as the Old Man of Europe. It had lost its influence in the Balkans. Russia felt cheated of its victory. Eventually, only Bulgaria got its independence. Henry Kissinger, who has written a lot on this period, believes that this Congress of Berlin 1878 saw a shift of power in favor of Bismarck's realpolitik, meaning realist politics. Germany had become too powerful for isolation. And Bismarck formed alliances that most were dissatisfied with. And he never trusted Russia and did not want Russia to get the fruits of their victory in the Russo-Turkish War. Then you have another Congress of Berlin 84-85. As Germany is increasing its powers. See, please remember this period also sees many of these European powers having colonies abroad. This is the period of colonization, especially of Asia and Africa, and even Latin America. So basically this conference was called to determine the status of European colonization and trade in Africa, especially in Congo, Western Africa. Germany had suddenly become extremely powerful. So Germany also wanted a piece of the cake. It divided Africa on the greed of the European powers just by establishing claim to land, by effectively occupying the land, allowing free passage to all ships on river Niger and Congo. And this Congress also said it abolished slavery throughout Africa. Now, if most of us see Vienna Congress and then Germany becomes extraordinarily powerful. Many people believe one of the reasons for the First World War was this unusual increase of power by Germany in this period under the leadership of Otto von Bismarck. The other major reason many historians agree and accept, and international relations theorists, is rival and secret alliances. So just before the First World War could begin, you had secret alliances. First was what is called the Triple Alliance. This was a secret agreement between Germany, Austro-Hungary, and Italy, formed on 20 May 1882, and it was renewed periodically till the First World War. Germany and Austria-Hungary had been closely aligned since 1879. Italy sought their support after losing its North African ambitions to the French. So if you see, they had military provisions that were kept a secret until 1919. The Triple Entente, which in French Entente means friendship, understanding, and agreement. This was an informal understanding between the Russian Empire, the French Third Republic, and Great Britain. It built upon the Franco-Russian alliance of 1894 and the Entente Cordiale of 1904 between Paris and London, and the Anglo-Russian Entente of 1907. So if most of us see, this was a period we are looking at where the state evolves from a very decentralized ad hoc order to the Treaty of Westphalia, where it becomes where sovereignty is defined, where a territorial integrity is defined, and after that we move on to the Treaty of Utrecht, where we say sovereign equality among different countries, and then you bring about these states, the golden period of balance of power between five major powers of Europe from 1815, the Treaty of Vienna, till the First World War. What destroyed them was the reason that Germany became very powerful at the cost of other countries, and secret alliances that were formed which was not known to the other side. So all this, led to the breakdown of the golden period of balance of power, and the state, the Westphalian state, keeps evolving to this period, in this period, as the international system, transforms itself from a very ad hoc, decentralized system to a more manageable, organized, hierarchical system. Thank you.